Welcome back to the channel, guys. So there's been a few videos that have popped up on the blue Fiat. I have been working on that as well as on the green one, kind of balancing them, balancing my time between the two of them, as well as servicing my daily driver. So let's have a little look what we've been doing to the green Fiat and what is kind of going to be coming up in this episode and this little kind of walk. So I have got a couple of parts here, again from Toto. So those are his contact details. Once again, not sponsored. I stress not sponsored, but he does help me out. So drop him a line if you need anything. I mean, you can see that the snagging list, to-do list, has come on really well. What I have done this week that I haven't done on camera, or at least not recorded here, but you will have seen on the channel or on my Instagram, is I've sorted out the rear lights. So I stripped those all down, did a little bit of repair to the cluster itself, the wiring on there. I put a new earthing point on each one and made a new earth point in the back of the engine bay for those. I also wired up the number plate light, so those are all fully functional. I changed the oil as well because I'd just done that little test fire with the old oil that was in it, which was black and treacly as you like. When I came to remove the sump nut, it was absolutely seized, so I had to get my map torch on that, heat it up, and I got that out. I've since replaced that with a spare one that I had, which has got an internal hex drive, and so is never going to try and strip like the other one had tried to round off. I had to get that off with one of my grip tight sockets, so I wasn't going to leave that one on there because that was going to be a massive pain in the arse for the new owner. So what do we have that's going on in this episode? Well, there's two things. Number one, I mentioned at the end of last episode about adjusting the gear linkage, and I was having a little bit of an issue with adjusting the gear linkage, and that's partly down to the fact that it had been so long since I'd looked under the car. I hadn't checked the condition of this. This is colloquially known as the lollipop connector because it looks vaguely like a lollipop. What it is the gear linkage that goes between the gear shift shaft that runs the length of the car that connects to the gear lever at one end here, and the other end connects directly to the shifting mechanism, so the lever that goes in and out and twists to actually select and move the selector forks in the gearbox. Now, as you can see from this, it's supposed to be relatively solid. It does have a rubber connector in the middle, but it shouldn't move. Now, these things do perish over time, and because they get inevitably covered in oil and all sorts of crap. When I take the one out that is under the car a little bit later on, you'll be able to see that whereas this doesn't move at all, the one that's under there, you can touch it and it bends this way and it bends in this plane as well. So it really was not helping my adjusting the gear linkage. So I'm not going to bother finishing adjusting the gear linkage until I replace this lollipop. So that is part number one. And part number two is a speedo cable. Now, the speedo cable shouldn't really need replacing, but I will show you why it needs replacing. It never even occurred to me that I might need to replace that, because when I bought the car, I drove it about 100 metres or so off the back of a transport lorry and onto my driveway. Now, nothing worked on it at the time. There were no lights, there was no dash readout, so I was driving along in the dark by the light of my phone, like real health and safety there. But I hadn't actually noticed that the speedo didn't work. Now, there's a reason why the speedo doesn't work, and that's because if we look at why the speedo is never going to work, because here is the speedo cable. It runs again from the gearbox all the way through the spine, centre console tunnel of the car, and it comes out here. Now, I thought this little sleeve here was just something that someone had slid over as an additional bit of protection where that grommet was missing there. However, you can imagine my surprise when I pulled it like this and the speedo cable separated completely in two. So there is a square drive cable that goes in there. That's fine, that can come out. The problem is the bit that connects to the back of the gauge cluster there is not actually connected to anything else. So that's absolutely ready for the bin, and I'll chuck that down on the floor. And that is why we have this. Okay, now I haven't actually checked the ends of this, but again, this is from Toto, so I'm taking his word that this one will fit. But if it doesn't fit, I'll send it back. And that is going to go in here before the interior is fitted, because like the battery cable and the fuel lines and everything else, you really don't want to be sticking things down that tunnel when the interior is in, because you have to basically take it all out, and it's a horrible, horrendous job. And I've done it on the blue car, and I really don't like doing it. So I'm going to make sure that this is done before it gets to that stage. So that's what we're going to be aiming to do in this video. I'll give you a little walk around the rest of the car. The blue car's back now as well, so maybe I'll do a little bit of a comparison. I'm filming this of an evening, hence the reason why I'm inside and the door's shut. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that it's daytime and hopefully not raining. I'll push it outside and we can look at the rest of it. So we can look at the fitting of that lollipop and how bad the original lollipop linkage was, and we can stick the speedo cable in as well. And with a bit of luck, I'll be able to adjust the gear linkage, and then I'll chuck the trusty jerry can under the bonnet and we'll reverse it up and down the driveway and see how badly stuck the advance weights are on the distributor, and whether I need to unstick them, because if they're stuck, it's going to bog down and it's not going to pull very well. But we'll see. Okay, so let's check back in tomorrow when it's a little bit lighter. So up here is what we're looking at. You can just see there's the lollipop. There is the connection on the right hand side of the screen. Can't see my finger pointing at it, which is the connection to the gearbox. And on the left you can see the bolt where it connects to the shaft. And then here we have the speedo drive. So obviously, as you can see, I've got axle stands underneath the car. There's one here. There's one directly in front of me, blocking my blocking my access to the bolts that I need to get to. So I'm going to have to slide in from the back of the car, which is going to make it next to impossible to film. But I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to take out the speedo drive there. I'm not going to film replacing the speedo drive because it's literally just a case of running it the length of the car, and it's going to be, as I said earlier on, a little bit of a pain. But I will take out and replace the lollipop there, and then we can have a little look at how bad the original one actually was. So here is the lollipop that was removed, and as you can see, it basically, as you were trying to push on the gear shift, it was just bending this way, was bending that way, and more importantly, it was bending this way, and looks like it was very much about to tear. So that wasn't ever going to work properly. You can see it's perished here as a result of age and oil ingress and all sorts of things. It's about twice as wide as it originally was. These two bits should be parallel, but they're not actually parallel anymore. So all in all, that certainly wasn't helping with our adjustment, and it was also a little bit loose on one end there. So that has now been replaced, and should mean that in a moment I'll be able to actually adjust the gear shift correctly. So now we've replaced that, here we are back in the car, and and we can go into first, so it won't rock, into second, into third, into fourth, and into reverse. Neutral, first, second, third, fourth. Just working through the gears there. If I'm honest, there was a little bit more to it than just that lollipop. I did actually have to shift the entire gearbox back by about 5mm on its mounts, because that's one of the reasons why it wasn't going into first, because there simply wasn't the range of motion in this shaft here to enable it to pull the gearbox selector fork out. So that was probably about an hour's crawling around under the car that I didn't bother filming. So it's perhaps not quite so straightforward as it appeared. I don't know why the gearbox and the engine were in slightly the wrong place, because really there's only one place where they can go. So again, who knows, but it's fixed now, so we're golden. So I've chucked a jerry can under the bonnet, and my seat is about 50 million miles back, but we'll see whether or not we can get this started, and then we'll drive it into the garage. Flip that around, try and do this all one-handed, give it a little bit of choke, give it a start. That was a bit too much choke, but let's try and creep along with my all of my writing on the bonnet there. Can I see where I'm going without hitting? Oh no, it stalled it. There you go. It turns out that it hadn't actually stalled, it had just run out of fuel in the jerry can, or the hose had come out. But as you can see, it now moves under its own power. Unfortunately, it still won't go in reverse. So I'm going to have a little more fiddling around with that gear linkage to get it to go into reverse. So that was a slight disappointment, but the oil seal around here is working properly now. As you can see, there's no more oil that has sprayed around the engine bay, so that's good. We're getting throttle. I think the throttle response is a little slow because of those sticking weights in there, which, as I suspected, were sticking, so I'll have to pull the plate that contains the points out of there, and then I'll remove the advance weights, clean them all up, silicone them, stick them back in again, and that should solve any issues with you know, advanced curves and things like that. But other than that, pretty happy with that. Gonna put a fuel tank in it, and then, as I say, it's then going to be shaken down, tidying it up. So, get around to the light. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked that, give us a like. If you want to subscribe and check out some more, then please click the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.